You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. It's about that time of year where you start to see a lot of lists and a lot of different things like that around college football and speculation and projections and all. We're kind of getting, this is the preamble to talking season when the media days begin. And I ran across this earlier today. Muse put it in our show prep document. It was over at CBS, and they listed about a dozen or so breakout stars in college football, players that are going into year two. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot of names you don't care about in other conferences or leagues. Two that were interesting, though. One was Lance Hurd, who, of course, left LSU and is now at the University of Tennessee. He was the number 3 offensive tackle in the country a year ago, signed with LSU. Now, obviously, is headed to Tennessee, where he'll be the starting left tackle at Tennessee, barring something dramatically unforeseen. But that's a guy who should have a really big year. The other that was interesting, that should be of interest to you anyway, is LSU defensive end Deshaun Womack. And it was interesting to see Womack's name pop up because I think that's one of the names that not a lot of LSU fans, I think, are really focused on when you talk about the defense for 2024. I think we have a lot of questions about defensive tackle for all the reasons that we talked about all offseason because of numbers. I think people are very clearly interested in the secondary because they were atrocious a year ago. So we talk about a lot of the guys, how they might step up, including a lot of the second-year players, guys like Javian Toviano and Ashton Stamps, some of the safeties as well. Well, the write-up on Deshaun Womack was LSU's defensive issues well publicized at this point. Tigers struggled in big games and weren't great at getting at the passer outside of Harold Perkins, who profiles more as a box linebacker with elite pass rushing tendencies. A big leap from Womack would be a much-needed salve. Womack, who boasts an explosive first step, has all the tools to be a consistent terror off the edge. His word, not mine. You know when I think about Deshaun Womack, what immediately comes to mind? Last year, fall camp, now I won't forget this. I still have the imagery in my head. Last year, fall camp, Womack's a freshman, 5-star, right? And the defensive line and the offensive line are running 2-on-1 drills. So basically, you have 2 offensive linemen and 1 defensive lineman that has to split the double team. And Deshaun Womack got thrown around like a rag doll. It was in the indoor facility. They let the media go watch him the catwalk upstairs, you have the catwalk at the top of the facility. And I remember where I was standing, and it was in the end zone that is closest to football ops building in the far corner. And I went, oh, well, he won't be an every down lineman this year. Not to say never, but it was just very clear that he was not going to be able to help you in run defense at all. He's just too small. Like, if you can't take on big defensive linemen like that, you're not going to have a role, except for a role as far as a rotational piece, a pass rusher on specific pass rushing downs. And that's what Deshaun Womack did a year ago. And he played in 12 games and had 13 tackles, 1.5 for loss, 1.5 for sack, about what I expected. It was interesting, though, watching Deshaun Womack this spring because it's very clear that he is focused on getting his body bigger and ready for the SEC. As a matter of fact, Brian Kelly mentioned that back in March when he talked about the progress that Deshaun Womack has made.
I like what he's doing. He's made a lot of progress, and he's ready to play. He's building a bank of trust. He didn't have a lot in there, but he's building it. And I like where he's going. We like his energy. We like his the way he cares about what he's doing. And, I think he's going to make an impact in our defense.
For what it's worth, in spring, he was lining up at right defensive end, backing up Braden Swinson. So you have Savion Jones on the left side, Braden Swinson on the right, and Deshaun Womack backing up Braden Swinson at right defensive end in this Blake Baker defense. I think there's a lot to be excited about with Deshaun Womack. He was a 5-star edge. super athletic, quick first step. All that is right. But to be an every down player, you have to be able to take on an SEC left tackle in run support, to set the edge, all those sort of things. It's not just get up the field. I mean, you'll know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But those are the things that Deshaun Womack has to work on. So, yes, I'll be very excited to see Womack. But I don't know if this is the year that he breaks out, because he's behind Braden Swinson, who I think is going to be LSU's best edge rusher this year. Aside from Harold Perkins, different roles, though. There's two other players going into year two that I looked at and said, well, I think those guys are going to have massive years. And for what it's worth, if you go back and look up LSU's 2023 class, so the guys going into year two, there are 9 guys from that class that are no longer on the roster. Pull this up, Paul. Michael Daugherty's gone. Jalen Brown is gone. Kai Preon is gone as well. Jackson McGowan, Ryan Yates, Jackson Howard, Christian Braithwaite, Jeremiah Hughes. You got 9 guys already gone from that 2023 class. But the 2 guys that aren't mentioned in that piece that should be, in my opinion, number 1 is DJ Chester. Because DJ Chester's your starting center. On an offensive line that might be the best in college football. Again, I don't know everybody's offensive line in college football. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell you that I know that LSU is definitively the best. What I do know is LSU's the only offensive line that's got 2 guys in everybody's way too early mock drafts as first-round picks in Will Campbell and Emory Jones. And the other 2 guys have started like 40 games apiece in Dellinger and Miles Frazier. So you put DJ Chester, a year 2 guy, right in the middle of that offensive line. He's surrounded by a bunch of really talented veterans. That's going to set him up to succeed. He's going to be your starter. I think he's got a giant season ahead of him. And the other is Kaleb Jackson. Like, I don't know how you could start talking about year 2 guys at LSU without talking about Kaleb Jackson, because he's probably going to be LSU's leading rusher this year. He's going to have the opportunity to be the bell cow. Kaleb Jackson last year on a team that had 8 scholarship running backs, 8, had 31 rushing attempts for 165 yards and 4 touchdowns. That averaged out to 5.3 yards per carry. And most impressively is what we saw Kaleb Jackson do with his physicality, running over that cat on the sideline from Mississippi State. What if Kaleb Jackson gets 200 carries this year at 5.3 yards per carry? Well, that's a 1,000-yard season. That's 1,060 yards. I think Kaleb Jackson is poised this year, especially considering how thin you are in numbers in the running back room. I think Kaleb Jackson is poised to have a 1,000-yard season. So the year 2 player we should be talking about at the end of the season, I think Deshaun Womack's going to be an awesome player, and we'll take a bigger role this year. But the real, and Chester is going to be a starter. People just don't talk about offensive linemen, especially on that offensive line with so much star power around him. The guy we should be talking about is Kaleb Jackson, because he's the year 2 guy that's going to go kaboom, should go kaboom, and be the household name at the end of the season. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.